Hi, my name is Olivia and I run a little blog called Millennial Girl Interrupted, the link to which you can find in the description down below, unless you're watching on the website, in which case, hi! Obviously I have a new camera set up, shout out to my dad, and today what I want to talk about is my college journey. Obviously I've dealt with a lot of mental illness and that severely complicates the college journey and the college application process and where you end up going to college, and I want to talk about all of that. Because just like you, I watched every single video that YouTube had to offer on how I got into Harvard, Stanford, that kind of thing. And I'm not going to Harvard or Stanford, but I think my journey is valuable for people who have alternate paths to do with mental illness because it's a little more complicated. The first step in my college process was probably technically getting accommodations. The accommodations that I get include a formula card for science and math, extra time, and preferential seating. So those are the accommodations that I got for all standardized testing and testing within the school system. Obviously getting this for the SAT was something of an advantage, but for me, because I was already disadvantaged due to the disabilities that I was experiencing, I really did need them, and my list of disabilities would prove that. And I know that some people take advantage of the system. I obviously don't support that, but people who need the accommodations need them to be available and not terribly difficult to get, or else they wouldn't be able to get them, or wouldn't be able to get them in time. So here I am with my accommodations, and the SAT rolls around in April. And I didn't know that it was coming until a few weeks before. It was in school, and my school did not offer the essay, so I was vastly underprepared. I barely studied. I think my boyfriend and I went over some math before, but I couldn't focus. So I took it. I got, I'm not going to say what I got, but I got a pretty good score, and one that would qualify me for pretty much any school in the country. Of course, I took that and I was like, wow, I'm going to be able to go to, Vanderbilt or NYU or whatever, and it's a bit more complicated than that. So I took that test. Now, for APs, I took 3 AP classes. That was the most that my school offered. Nobody else took 3. Most people didn't take any. A couple people took 2. I took AP Physics, I took AP Language, and AP, oh god, certainly not AP Memory, AP Calculus, AB. They didn't offer AP History of any sort. That was something I tried to self-study for, but I did not have the discipline to self-study for a History AP exam, though I tried. Anyways, I didn't end up taking the AP test for those, but I got A's in those AP classes, so that boosted my GPA a fair amount. As with lots of people who suffer from mental illness in high school, my GPA definitely suffered as a result of missed school, and inability to sit down and do work and have passion for what I'm doing, that kind of thing. But I had an upward trend, which was good. My freshman year, I think my GPA unweighted was 3.5, which isn't a disaster, but it's not ideal. I was in the hospital at the end of my freshman year, and I got a D in math because my math teacher didn't communicate with the hospital, and I never ended up getting a pretty large bulk of the work, but I didn't really mind too much. It was just Algebra 2, and it had an honors bump, and I was so done with freshman year anyways, it didn't really matter. Sophomore year rolls around, and I have a pretty successful year. My school is a little unusual. It offered a litany of pretty meaningless electives, which were really hard to get good grades in because you would be the only person in the class, and I know in my Latin class, well, first of all, in my theater class, I was the only one in it, and that was a little difficult to perform theater in, so that didn't go well, and my Latin teacher changed 3 times when I was taking Latin, so that was unfortunate. Anyways, I had some trouble handing in homework as well, so I did well in the main classes. I got A's in all of my, important classes, but I know my GPA suffered. It was about a 3.7 unweighted that year because of the electives. I think I got a C in yoga or something. It was a little bit difficult. Now, junior year rolls around, and I'm taking 3 APs. I have the SAT, to look forward to, and I do really well. I get A's and B's in every class. I get A's in all of my APs. No, I got an 88 in physics, I think. Or maybe calculus. It was one or the other. I was never gonna get an A in the STEM courses, but I did really well. Towards the end of the year, I had a breakdown to do with bullying and some people at the school, and I couldn't make it into the school physically. That made it really hard to do work. I tried to do summer school, but there were some circumstances that made it very difficult to focus over the summer. I was spiraling pretty bad, so I went into the hospital and finished my work there. So that's what my high school trajectory looks like. Now I want to talk about the application, because when I got out of the hospital, I'm in my senior year now, I'm at the end of it. When I got out of the hospital, it was mid-September. Late September. And I immediately had to start writing applications. I wrote my Common App essay first, and if you get nothing else from this video, I want you to get that you should not make your Common App essay about mental illness. I don't think you should not mention mental illness on your app, but there's different sections for that. I think if you're really trying to shine a light onto the best aspects of your personality, you'll find that mental illness is not really a part of your personality. It's part of your experience day to day, and it's absolutely valid and valuable, and should be on the app probably, but it shouldn't be your Common App essay, because there's so much more to you than mental illness. So I wrote, for example, about how I led the walkout for gun reform at my school, and I think it was a really good essay. I think it helped get me into some schools that I otherwise would not have gotten into, and I put everything I needed to in the additional information section. Now, if you guys know me, you'll know that I've missed 2 years of high school. My first year, it was due to just pure mental illness. I couldn't get out of bed for a year. My second year was due to a concussion that I sustained while playing soccer. Or double concussion, really. And it made such a difference in my schooling. Obviously, I'm 2 years behind, and my grades suffered and all that, that I really had to mention it somewhere on the application. It would have looked really bizarre if I didn't. So I used the additional information section to do just that. I painted it in a positive light and gave it a positive trajectory in the narrative arc, which is really important because they don't want to see, I struggled, I'm still struggling, let's see if I can do it at your school. You know, they want to see that you have some resilience and can battle through what the school throws at you. I sort of went at it because my mental illness was recurring and I wasn't going to get away with saying it was just a one-off thing. You know, I sort of went with the, because I have struggled so much and have gathered all this knowledge, and I've started this website, I've started this blog about, you know, all my struggles and giving back to others the knowledge that I've accrued. I sort of went at it from that angle, where I'm giving back to people, which is a resolved kind of angle, you know, like you've done something with it, something positive, instead of just wallowing in it, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not a great angle for college. So I also had to talk about the interruption, like if you've gotten any interruptions in your traditional path. I think that there's a question there, and I talked about how I'd stayed back 2 years. That's, you have to mention that. Yeah, there's a bit of a controversy on websites like College Confidential and Reddit over whether or not you should mention mental illness in your application at all. My official verdict on that is you should mention it if it makes a significant impact on your application that could not otherwise be explained. So if you have to mention it, basically, mention it and paint it in a proper light. This is important not only because you want to get into your dream school, and they may or may not like that you include mental illness, but also for your own self-esteem. Like, you are way more than just your mental illness. You have likes and dislikes that are totally unrelated to whether or not you can get out of bed. You have life experiences that aren't to do with how often you cry, and you know, those are what make you you and what are going to inform the trajectory of your life. You're healing from mental illness, and that'll go away and you'll be left with who you are, and I want that to be represented in your application. So, extracurricular activities. This was a bit of a tough one for me because I didn't have the typical, like, did Model UN and went to Worlds and that kind of thing. I guess that's not typical, but like for the schools I was applying to, that was the typical thing. So obviously I put the website, I put that I was student government president, which I was. I did not include that the student government presided over a body of 50 students, because that's not necessary to be included. They don't need to know that part. I wrote that I was head of the social committee at my school, which was kind of integrated into the student council, but again, they don't need to know that. I wrote this website down, obviously. That was a big part of my application. If there were any supplements that asked for you to elaborate on what you were writing about in the extracurricular section, I'd write about the website. I wrote that I was working, that I was holding down a job. I wrote that I'd done debate for 2 years. I went to varsity debate after, I think it was 2 debates. We qualified for varsity and we went to a couple of tournaments, so I wrote that down, figured it couldn't hurt. I wrote down the summer programs I went to. I went to summer at Brown, which was totally life-changing. I love all my friends from there. Shout out to you guys who read this. Went to a debate camp at Dartmouth, the Dartmouth Debate Institute, which was really fun, and it got me prepared for my varsity year, which was cut a little bit short due to mental illness and me not being able to get to school, but debate was actually the thing that got me out of bed for a while, like a few months. I was going to the tournaments and the practices, and that was my motivation for, it sounds dramatic, but that was my motivation for interacting with the outside world, was debate. So yeah, those are my extracurriculars. I didn't put much in awards. I know my school had like honor roll, and I was on the honor roll every quarter, so I put that. I did win a Scholastic Writing Award, so I put that in for, I think it was for nonfiction essay / memoir, I think was the category, and I won an award for that. Just a regional award. I didn't get the gold. But I put that down because what do you have to lose? And then also in almost every application, because on the Common App they go like, each school has a separate application, but they overlap a lot. One of the things I did was I attached, in every college that allows you to attach a resume, I would attach an excerpt of my writing on the blog, my introductory excerpt that was at the very beginning, my first post, that explained what it was all about. And I did that because you can't do more than like maybe like 100 characters under each extracurricular activity in that category, so I wanted to really explain to people what I was doing. Sometimes I would elaborate on my job. I got a great recommendation from my boss at the time. It was, I think that really helped me. Thank you. Teacher recommendations. This was kind of tough because I didn't go to the school that I had spent most of my time at anymore, so I had to email my teachers. Some of them weren't terribly responsive, but I got an email back from one of my teachers from my old school, and he was happy to write a recommendation. He wrote it. I assume it was really good. I had a good time in his class. It was for AP English, so I think it made an impact, but also because my years had been so chopped up due to mental illness and not attending and homework missing and that kind of thing, I guess I should say because my journey had been so non-traditional, I didn't have the same kind of connection with teachers as most people would have through a very 4-year linear progression. So I got my second recommendation from my counselor, not like my guidance counselor, but my like psychological counselor at the school that they have available for anyone. But because I had a 504 plan and an IEP, I always talked to her. And she knew me very well, and I think the import of giving a recommendation from someone who knows you very well can't be overstated. Don't get a recommendation from somebody who you barely talk to in class, or from the principal. Maybe if it sounds impressive if it's from the principal, but they don't know you and they're going to say very generic things, and I have a feeling that adcoms know. I didn't tell colleges about everything. I didn't go over suicide at all. I didn't say that I'd attempted it all. I listed a few of my diagnoses, the main ones, and I said, these are things that have impeded my path. This has affected this grade. This held me back in this grade, and this is how I've worked to improve those conditions. I think I mainly emphasized my OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and eating disorder just because those are my main diagnoses, and that's what made the biggest impact on my trajectory. So I submitted the applications, and it was a long wait. I wouldn't recommend doing it how I did. I didn't apply early to any schools. I didn't know you could do that really, and I didn't have anything ready in time by the time, like once I realized that you could apply early, it was too late. I can't believe I didn't know about this, but I was in the hospital over the summer, so I wasn't researching it. Anyway, so I put in all my applications, and I actually heard back from the school that I'm going to first. I got into the vast majority of the schools I applied to. I was waitlisted to 2 schools. And what I want to do post-grad, and I've talked about this on the blog, but I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a public defender, and that obviously requires a law school, which requires law school money. So I got into, I think, 5 or 6 honors colleges. I got scholarships from almost every school I applied to, None of them were as big as the one I'm taking, which is almost a full ride. It's the biggest scholarship the school gives, which is huge because I'm going to need that law school money. The school I'm going to actually is Temple University in Philadelphia, and I am so happy to be going there. I have 3 wonderful roommates. The honors program is amazing. The professors that I've seen and met are just wonderful. They have lots of opportunities because they're such a big school, but I'm gonna get the individualized attention that my mental illness probably will require through the honors college. So it's really the best of both worlds. I'm in a city, which is exactly what I wanted. I think having a city around me will force me out of my bed if there ever comes a time that I find it difficult to get out. But yeah, I've always seen college as a way to really escape my home life and, you know, my past difficulties. It definitely won't be the perfect, you know, Elysium of an escape, but I do think that there's something to be said for growing into an independent role when you've never really had to before, because naturally with mental illness you are being taken care of a fair amount by your doctors and your therapists and your parents and your friends, and there's a certain amount of helplessness that's induced by these kinds of conditions. And college, you're on your own, and I find that really empowering, and I cannot wait to see what Temple University brings me. That's it for the video. I hope it was helpful. I hope this lamp back here wasn't too distracting. We'll see. And I will see you all next time. Bye.